have Jeff Waldridge and Buck from Sons of Appalachia. These Appalachian legends track cryptids, share gripping tales from the wild hills. Jeff, Buck, it's great to have you on. And first off, I just want to congratulate you all on your success. Your YouTube channel was, what, 3 months old? And you're already
Yes,
at over, or is it at 90,000? I think it just reached that maybe, or just shy of it. And you were just saying before we got on, Jeff, that your last episode was top 60 in all of YouTube, which is just insane.
Yeah, I think we're almost at 90. We may break it by the time you see this because it's weird because me and Buck kind of watch it and it'll be like 1,000 people a day or, whatever it'll be, subscribing. So I would, by the time you see this, it may be over 90. We're trying to hit 100 because we want the plaque. We'll do something special, I guess.
Yeah.
yes, yeah. If we get the plaque, I'm liable to try to talk Huck into shaving his beard.
Oh, gosh, I can honestly think I speak for all of America when we say we don't want to see what's under Huck's beard.
Maybe I'll talk Bill into growing a beard. How's that?
There you go. Guys, we appreciate you guys coming on.
Yeah, for sure.
I wanted to say this story because on air, I told you a little bit off air, but about, I don't remember how long ago, I was first introduced to mountain monsters while my wife was getting ready for formal night in the middle of the Caribbean on a cruise. And we're all guys. We know how long it takes the ladies to get ready. By the time she was done, I was hooked. And it was one of those situations that she'd turn her head for 5 minutes and I'd be back in the cabin watching watching mountain monsters. So I spent like $1,700 to spend a week in my cabin in the Caribbean, one of the most beautiful places on earth, watching mountain monsters.
That's amazing. And that's what I told you. That's the most romantic mountain monster stories I have ever heard. That I hope that really worked out in your favor, my friend.
Well, in April will be 15 years, so I think we're doing all right.
Well, congratulations.
Looks like Jeff's having some technical difficulties there, but that's okay. We'll keep trucking. But what led you to the woods? What started this whole thing for you? What said, hey, let's do this?
So let me tell you a funny story and a quick funny story. Of course, I've been in the woods my entire life. I grew up different than a lot of folk my age. I was 5 years old when my dad was taking me out squirrel hunting. And I'll never forget because I hadn't even started school yet. And Mom told me Dad was taking me squirrel hunting whenever he got home from work. And in my mind, it was like, okay, I got to be prepared. So I found this old leather pouch and I packed shotgun shells in it. I think I put a sandwich in there. I put a butter knife in there. I put everything but the kitchen sink in that bag. And I'll never forget. My dad would love this. We was going in through the woods, and I didn't realize my dad was going to use me as like a squirrel dog to a degree. He told me, he said, son, walk up around that tree, and that squirrel will pop back around so I can shoot it. I said, all right. So I walk up there, and sure enough, the squirrel pops around, and then he points at me to like go up on top of the hill. So I'm trying to climb this hill, and of course, I'm built the same way at 5 years old, the way I am now. So I'm trying to climb this hill, and I end up pulling this butter knife out of my pocket and like stabbing it in the ground, trying to claw my way up a hill. But that's when it all started. I have been a very hardcore hunter, outdoorsman my entire life. I've been grabbing catfish with my hands before I could even swim, and that's no lie.
Awesome.
My dad would drag me from rock to rock on a rubber mat to help him grab catfish. Yeah, I've had a love for the outdoors my entire life. And then whenever I was about 15 years old, when I had my first Bigfoot encounter, and that's what kicked it all off as far as like hunting cryptids.
Nice. So tell us about that. That we got to hear about that because that was about the same age that I had my experience.
So me and my dad was turkey hunting, and this is a family owned farm. I've actually had Jeff up there so that he could see the place, and Lee and Jennifer, because it's very special to me. But anyway, me and my dad are all the way in the bottom of the holler. We're turkey hunting. We got this old bird fired up, gobbling his head off. We think that this bird's coming in on a string. We think we're really, making some progress, about to kill this big old gobbler, and he shut up on us, and which isn't that uncommon. They do that, and then some, But while we're sitting there waiting, while things go quiet, it's like the whole woods went quiet, and I'll never forget. I hear, and I'm like a flat, maybe two flats above the creek, which is really steep, so I can't see down there. And I hear what sounds like two rocks, like if you just grabbed a rock in each hand and started smashing them together. And this went on for, it was almost like in segments, like clap, clap, clap. And this went on for at least 30 minutes. And I didn't know what it was. And my dad come down there and he said, son, that bird shut up. Why don't we get out of here and see if we can't find another one? And I said, Dad, you hear that noise? It sounded like rocks clapping together. He said, yeah. He said, that's probably a bear down there flipping rocks looking for something to eat. And I just was thinking about it a little bit. And I said, Dad, I'm going to stay right here and see if I can't work this bird. And Dad no more than made it out of sight, and I had to go down there and see. So I dove for the creek, and when I got down there, the creek bed wasn't really disturbed. You could see where a couple rocks were flipped, but I found my first track, and it was about 18 inches, long. And that's when I was 14, 15 years old. I found my first track, and then at that point I was like, things started dawning on me, like, oh wait, a bear couldn't make that sound. You have to have thumbs. You know what I mean? To be able to pick something up like that,
Right.
you have to have thumbs. And that's whenever my interest was like, okay, I'm into this now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What was your dad's response to that? Did you tell him and you show him the
I didn't tell him for
footprint, or-
years. I didn't tell him for
Oh,
years.
wow.
Well, whenever I was a kid, dude, there was no such thing as a cell phone. Like
Right.
we didn't have cell phones. You know what I mean? So I didn't have a picture. I didn't have anything. But no, I waited for years before I told Dad because I figured he'd think I was crazy.
Right. Yeah.
And whenever I finally told Dad about it, Dad, he wasn't completely closed-minded to it. You know what I mean? But then I started. Of course, I've known Huckleberry my entire life, and I knew that he was into Bigfoot, into cryptids, and he's always been somebody I could confide in, and that's where it all kicked off.
Wow. That's
Awesome.
cool.
Yeah.
That's a scary thing when you're that age and you see something that doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
You do everything in your mind to try to justify it or make it make sense, and then you sit and you're like, but and then you pick it apart. You're like, wait, that can't be that way. That's just the reason I was like, it couldn't be a bear because it had to have thumbs. It's cracking
Right.
rocks together. Yeah, and I've found hundreds of bear tracks since then, and I've found several Bigfoot tracks, and there's no comparison. There's not.
Right. Right. That is crazy. Now, we live here local in Anderson County, which is the hotbed in Kentucky of Bigfoot. And I had a gentleman come to me. I work a very public job. And one of the things on my walls in my office was a Bigfoot. And it was kind of fluffy, looked mean, coming around a tree, whatever. And the guy I was talking to, he kept sitting there looking at that picture and looking at that picture and looking at that picture. And finally just says, plain as day, he doesn't look anything like that. And I'm like, who doesn't? I didn't know what he's talking. And I saw him looking at the picture, and he's like, he's got way stringier hair, smells terrible. I'm like, really? How do you know? He said, I've seen him twice on my farm here in Anderson County. Once was down in a creek. He was down there hunting, getting something out of the creek, fish or whatever. And he stood up, looked at me, saw that I wasn't a threat, turned and just gracefully walked off into the woods.
That's
And
awesome.
then the second time he saw him, he was down closer to, like, he was checking out the livestock. He had some sheep, and I guess he was trying to judge whether he could snag one of those sheep and walk off with it or not. But
It's crazy. I see Huckleberry do the same thing sometimes.
But look for sheep.
I mean, you know,
Wow.
it is what it is.
We'll keep that between us. We won't let anybody listen to that. Jeff, after we get off the air, I'll tell you who that guy is. You may know him.
Yeah, I would love to know that, because that's it's weird because a lot of people don't realize that across America they all look different, or they're all described as being different. And
Yep.
I think in this area where we are and where Buck is, and I think that they are smaller. I think they are scrawnier. They still have some mass to them, but I think they are maybe a little more stringier hair, a little more, I think it's just kind of a situation where you're not going to get the Pacific Northwest Bigfoot here. It's just the conditions. I mean, we basically live in a jungle, so you're going to have a creature that can adapt to that.
The one
Absolutely.
Bigfoot that I can say, in my opinion, that in the Appalachian Mountains, that's set aside from all the other Bigfoot encounters we've had, is 100% the Ohio Grassman. He is basically a beast amongst all of them. He is definitely significantly bigger than any other Bigfoot that I've ever dealt with.
Wow.
Wow.
So how
And
many
the strangest thing about the Grassman is, the strange thing about the Grassman is, like, they call it the Grassman because it's literally in Ohio. So it shouldn't be like there's not, you know what Ohio's like in certain parts of it. So it's kind of like it's just,
It
it almost sticks out like a sore thumb. Yeah. So, I mean, it's strange whenever you start looking at some of the sightings and stuff. It's almost like it's out of place.
Well, I can tell you, we've done 2 back-to-back years now at the Hocking Hills Bigfoot Festival, and when we go to these festivals, like you got, we don't sell anything. We just go there to interview people about their encounters and talk to people. And I can tell you from experience about all the people and different variety of folk that we have talked to in those 2 years, there's something there. The thing is, and Jerry will say this all day long, you could take 98% of the sightings and attribute it to a misidentification. You can attribute it to a bear, you can attribute it to something. But then you got that 2%. And the numbers don't lie. That 2% in the 2 years that we've done that is huge.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that was something that
Well,
amazed me is
and
how
when
many-
you look at it like this, yeah, I think Lyle Blackburn says it a lot. And he says if one person is telling the truth about what they saw and it wasn't a misidentification, then that's it. I mean, it just takes one witness to actually see something and not misidentify. And that's all there is. And when you put that together with thousands of witnesses across the United States, I mean, I don't know. There's something going on. I don't know what the circumstance is. There's so many different variations. There's so many, and it don't stop at Bigfoot. I mean, there's 50 million other things out there that people are seeing. So, I mean, it's hard to say.
One thing that really gets me is the difference with Dogman and Bigfoot, because I genuinely think that a lot of Dogman sightings that are and we get a lot of those, and I'm sure you do down around Kentucky, because I've talked to several people down there that have had those encounters. I think a lot of times that people think that because of the legend of the Dogman and all of this, that they see something, but I think it gets confused as a Bigfoot sometimes. I think that that what they actually seen was not in their mind Dogman. I think they may have actually seen a Bigfoot, and they just don't realize it.
Yeah, I think
That's
that with the different types that you could get into a situation where you got a highly aggressive Bigfoot that may look a little different. I mean, look at apes and for instance, you have baboons, you have different
Yep.
types. So who's to say that a dog man is not, And I know a lot of the dog man community is going to be like, no, it's this or that, because that's its whole thing. I'm not trying to go to battle with the dog man people, but I'm saying that I think some circumstances you could have a misidentification, and it could just been a highly aggressive Bigfoot,
Yes.
or vice versa. So I mean, who really knows?
well, the one thing that we did research, and we're actually getting ready to restart with the Gimlin film in just a couple of weeks. But there's I want to say 74 million acres in the United States that have never had a human footstep on them that we're aware of. So there's plenty of room out there for Dog Man and Bigfoot.
Well, exactly, and
Yeah.
that 74 million acres, that's the areas that we like to cover.
Right.
That's the, you know what I mean? That's
Yep.
that's where we like to go, is where nobody else is, because that's where you get into some really interesting encounters. That's the reason the Tiger Valley was so promising and so had so much activity, is because whenever you look at it geographically, like the area we was in, like you're miles away from civilization, quite literally miles. And that's what we like. That's what
That's
we're after.
that's the hardest. That's the hardest part we've had to combat with the channel, is being in the middle of nowhere and having to make production work. Because you got to think, it went from having Discovery Channel's budget and the backing and having the resources to now it's 3 people making this happen.
Yeah.
And then, so we got to figure out how to keep batteries charged, how to not die in the woods, how to not have heat strokes, how to not have, we haven't even hit winter yet. So, I mean, we still may die. We don't know yet. But, I mean, we're trying to prepare for that.
Please don't die.
We have so many issues just filming here in town. It's like we can't ever get our sound to work, and go ahead.
There is so much that we have, that you have to think about. Like, we had to buy external batteries for the cameras that we could strap on there and plug in if we needed to. We're getting ready to do something that's just probably the stupidest thing we've ever attempted, but we've thought it out. So I think it will work very well. But, we're getting ready to start that, and that'll probably be in December, but we can't really say anything about it yet because other people will copycat you. But it's going to be literally groundbreaking, and probably the dumbest thing we've attempted in the first year of having this thing on. But,
hey, but we're
I think we've thought it through. Yeah, I think we've thought it through. So we'll see how that works. So, I mean, it's the greatest part about it that I will say is the fans have absolutely, this has been a grassroots effort from the fans, because we did the crowdfunding thing. They donated over 10 grand, and we were able to put that in an account to use for equipment. So we bought 2 really nice professional cameras and we got more equipment than we ever need. And now we're starting to kind of break into some of these new things that we want to try, and it's just giving stuff back to them. So, I mean, I'll tell you, the challenges of being out in the woods and filming, because when I'm filming and I have the camera and I'm in night vision, I have to make sure I don't fall over a hill. I have to make sure that, I pretty much got to have somebody behind me to make sure I don't back over a hill, which I fell down the hill once already. And then, and the only thing that broke my fall was a tree. I landed into it with my shoulders, and I was like, well, there it is. But
you've only fell once
it's crazy.
So far.
Yeah,
I'm counting that
so far. It's just one time.
You have safety meetings for like days since an incident.
So, like, my major concern is the camera. I don't care about my body. Like, when I fall, I make sure that I fall in a way where the camera is protected because that's very expensive. I have health insurance, so I'll just go to the hospital.
So speaking of cameras, so whenever I talk to people about Bigfoot, and they're always like, "Well, why isn't there more video footage, or why isn't there more pictures?" What is your all's answer to that?
Well, I think it's what Buck said. It's your brain is trying to process something that's not supposed to exist, so you're stunned. And I've had that same experience with ghosts and stuff like that. You see it right in front of your face, you can't process it, and you damn sure can't process it long enough where you can turn the camera on. So it's just the way it is. Every witness I've talked to has been like that. They can't process it. They're trying to figure out what it is. They're trying to make sense of it, and they can't. So I think that's why you don't. I think any Bigfoot footage that you see is accidental if it's legitimate, or they were just filming and they caught it.
Or they was
So
prepared for it.
it's still kind of on that accidental realm. I think that's going to be your best footage. I mean, a lot of that stuff is just, if first off, in any Bigfoot video that I look at, why were they filming? First off, what's the reason you had a camera filming? And if you had no reason to be filming, then it's fake. It's not real.
Yep.
And then that's the big number one question is why did you have a camera in your hand on? And then a Bigfoot just suddenly walked across. Now, if you had another reason for it, that's a little different. So you got to take all of that into account, because I'm telling you now, if you could have an alien standing in front of you and you're not going to be able to operate that camera because your brain is just gone.
2 years ago, to that very point, Jeff, I interviewed a man and a wife, and they were in Ohio. They were on their front porch. Everybody, they had company over playing cards or whatever, and they were standing out there. They was all having a smoke, and the company was leaving. As they were standing on the front porch, this wedge-shaped craft hovered over their house slowly, with no sound, with only 5 lights underneath it. Made me think of the Phoenix Lights is what it made me think of. And all 4 of them sit there, and they just couldn't turn away long enough, and every one of them had their phone in their hand, and none of them just even made the thought to reach up and take a picture because they were so blown away with what was happening above their head.
A lot of times when you get those
and that's what happened.
A lot of times when you get those questions from people about, like, why isn't there more, people are going to be skeptical, and I encourage people to be skeptical. I mean, my advice to you is do your own research. Don't rely on what I say. Don't rely on what Jeff says. Start checking it out for yourself, because you'll believe yourself. But what people don't realize is whenever you encounter something like that, your adrenaline is pumping so hard, you don't think to grab your cell phone, which, even though that cell phones are a big thing now, it's not been around that long if you think about it. I mean, I was 20 years old before I had a cell phone. And now these kids are getting cell phones at 5, 6 years old. I was 20 years old before I had a cell phone. And that was one of those old Nokia phones that, like, if you was lucky, you had to hit the numbers 3 times to get your text. You know what I mean? But people don't think when your adrenaline's like that, you don't think to do that. I can't tell you how many times I've been driving down the road and seen a big old buck. I want to take a picture of him. I'm like, try to grab my phone. By the time I'm done looking at it with my own eyes, I don't think to grab my phone. By the time I think to grab my camera, a lot of times it's too late.
100%. My wife always gets mad at me because I do the same thing with our kids. They'll be doing something cute.
Did you get a picture of that?
I'll just be watching, and she'll be like, "You didn't have your phone out?"
Yep.
No, I didn't have my phone out. I was busy looking at it in person.
To that point, I think that
I was wanting to live this moment. I didn't want to experience it.
Right. I think one of the most convincing pictures or videos that I've seen recently is the police car that was driving down the road, and they caught it on their dash cam, but it was just outside their headlights. You can just make it going across, but they're filming because they have to be filming, going down a road and just happen to see it. And it's to Jeff's point. those are the ones that make me go, okay. I
Yeah,
can see that.
I know that video you're talking about.
Yeah,
I felt the same way.
Yep.
I was like, okay, that kind of that looks legit. Like that could be the real deal right there.
Yeah. So let me
Yeah, I
ask you a
think,
question.
and the reaction of it is the best part because
Yeah.
the cop pulls over, they turn around, they pull over, and he's like, "Where did it go?" Because he
Right.
saw what we didn't see. Because
Yep.
all we
Right.
seen was the black mass. He actually saw it go over the guardrail, so he saw a little more detail. So I think in any situation where you talk to a witness, is you've got to really look into the details, not just what they're saying, but you got to look at what they're not saying and or what you've seen or first off, what I look at a lot of times is why are you telling this?
Right.
You're not first off, you have if you have to chase somebody down, like the guy that you were talking to about Bigfoot, well, he wasn't trying to be on anything. He was just telling you a story. And that's what I like a lot of times is when you have to chase down an eyewitness and say, hey, somebody said you seen this, but tell me about it. And they're like, oh yeah, here's what happened. So I mean, there's no reason for them to make it up. You know, it's just
Right.
it's just their story.
Do you guys think that AI is going to add to this skepticism? That because I feel like as AI progresses, there's going to be a lot
Yeah.
more videos of Bigfoot and all these other cryptids. And
Well, they're going to go from being very blurry to very clean.
right,
I think.
yeah,
And that's what people have to realize with AI is AI is it will ruin the outdoor world to a degree, especially like when you're talking about cryptids, because they're going to make it to where, I'll be sitting on the back porch with coffee or, having a cup of coffee with Bigfoot. AI is already, I mean,
right.
Yep.
just for an example, here not very long ago, there was an issue that come about an AI video that was created that looked like it was me. Wasn't me. And it said I was 30 years old. I wish I was 30 years old. I felt a lot better at 30 years old. But AI is
So I mean,
able
you know,
to do that
it's
stuff.
it's easy to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've seen the trouble I had even getting on this podcast. I don't know how I'm not that great with technology. AI is like to me, it's almost scary to me, to be honest with you.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a whole different show as far as how scary AI is and
Yeah.
what it's going to accomplish in the next 5 to 10 years. I
Right.
do have a question for you guys though. When you guys get a story, when something hits your ear, what is something that somebody can say or encourage you, or what flips that switch from a fun tale to, hey, we need to get in the truck right now, we need to go there? What is that?
For
What is
me,
that
a lot
accomplishment?
of it is, and again, we talked before. Is, I've been in law enforcement for, in between corrections and what I do now for about 20 years. With me, I read a lot of body language, and I pay attention to people's eyes. I pay attention to, a lot of times if you pay attention, it doesn't take any idiot to realize when somebody's lying. I pay attention to people's body language, and I pay attention, like Jeff said earlier, to detail. Somebody that goes in great amounts of detail, generally they're telling the truth. So whenever I'm hearing a story about somebody, if they just come up and say, "I seen a Bigfoot, a couple days ago behind my house," okay, well, good for you, bud. But whenever I've got somebody that comes up and says, "Hey, listen, I seen a Bigfoot behind my house. It was about this time, and it's just getting dark. It was, about 7 o'clock in the evening. I just stepped outside. I was about to take a piss, and I just seen this shadow." That's whenever I'm like, okay, you're getting my attention. I want to hear what you have to say and see how active this is and see how accurate it is. Because if they believe it in their mind that they've seen it, a lot of times there's you have to take a little salt with it, because a lot of times it's misidentification, but it's they've seen something. You know what I mean? They seen something
Right.
that makes me question, okay, what did you see? You know what I mean? And we could film my gosh, we could throw so much stuff on the air about the misencounters and the not fun stuff that you don't get to see, because I mean that doesn't make that's not entertaining to see, like, oh, they went out here and it wasn't actually a Bigfoot, it was a black bear. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
not really worth it to put out our false witnesses or people who are misidentified. But anyway, sorry to go on a rant, but yeah, that's kind of my,
No,
my
that's
trigger
okay.
for me is paying attention to the details of the story and paying attention to body language and paying attention to their eyes. There's several things that go into play for me whenever I'm like, okay, this story's legit or this story is they're full of crap. You know what I mean?
Right. So, Jeff, I got a question for you. So, you guys get on site. What's everybody doing the first 10 minutes? Just walk us through.
So
Hey, we decided to go
usually
and
what
this
we're
is where we're
doing,
going.
yeah, so like when we get there, the biggest thing is let's find somewhere to have some type of base camp.
Yep.
You know, we got to have, it's usually in the back of a vehicle, you know, if it's a one night type of situation, you know, we'll put our cameras gear there where or a lot of times in the back of Buck's truck, and we'll just open up the tailgate and set everything there. And then we have somebody there with it. If we need something, we can radio them. But, you know, it's usually just, you know, getting everything ready and kind of getting the lay of the land, because you got to realize a lot of these places we go to, we've never been there before. So we kind of know the area somewhat, but we also got to look around for dangerous things. And, you know, just when we were filming the Dogman episode, we had a big old treetop fall out of the tree. And it was within probably 6 foot of us. And it fell, the wind was blowing because there was a storm coming in. And this big tree limb came straight out of the tree, fell within probably 6 foot of us. And I mean, stuff like that is what you don't see because it's nighttime. So, I mean, you know, it's you just kind of got to do the best you can to get a good feel of everything.
I'm just saying that if I'm in the woods at night and a treetop falls 6 foot away from me, I will be having to change my pants and underwear.
Oh yeah, we definitely
Listen,
move.
We're still breaking Jeff in. We all keep 3 or 4 pair with us in our pockets.
Yeah.
We're letting him learn the hard way.
Usually what happens is I'll have Lee right behind me if I'm filming, because a lot of times I'm going backwards. You know, if I'm in front of them and they're walking toward me, I'm going backwards. So I'll have Lee behind me, you know, kind of steadying me and show me where the limbs are, because I can't really stop filming. So, I mean, you know, it's a situation where I filmed in some of the craziest circumstances you could ever imagine. I had to, you know, Nick Groff had me climb the mountain with him, had me climb Mount Washington. I filmed all of that. I filmed the Spartan race that he did for charity once. So, I mean, I'm used to like really crazy conditions, and then just being out in the woods filming Bigfoot stuff on my own. But this is different because you're never in those areas and it's nighttime. And you don't know what wildlife is there, let alone what creature. Yeah.
It's a different
It's different all the time.
Instead of filming like just straight daytime and just filming, you know, you're filming us trying to see what we're doing and try to see everything around you. You're a one-man show, you know what I mean, a lot of times, and it makes it I don't envy your job, my friend.
And I'll tell you something that we've found out, and this is something that's just to make note of. We found with Mountain Monsters, the TV show, they had eyewitnesses and all that stuff very easily. We found that people don't want to be on camera. So we've had to gather a lot of these eyewitness stories, and they don't want to be on camera because they know how quick it'll be on YouTube, and people will track down their land and where they live. And now they got people running all over the place. So we've had people say, I would rather not be on camera, but I'll tell you my story. So that's a big thing. We haven't had an eyewitness yet on camera. Either they'll be on they'll want to not be on camera, or they'll want to do a call. So I get it. I mean, I understand that part of it.
When we go to these festivals to do interviews with folks, that's the number 1 or number 2 question. Is this going to be live? Is this
right?
Am I videotaped? And we're like, absolutely not. This will only be audio if that's what you choose. We can even we even add a layer. You can make up a name. We'll call you whatever you want us to call you, because for us, it's more about
We had one fella in the Dogman episode. It was a farmer, and he didn't want to go on camera. He said, I know how YouTube is. If I go on camera, he said, they'll find out where I am, and then I'll have people trying to come on my land. And he said, I'm trying to run a farm here. So he said, it's something that you do encounter, and it's something it's different than television. It's a television. You may film something, and a year later it may air. But this situation, it's like 2 weeks from now, so it's very easy for people to find out where people are.
Even whenever back during when we was filming Mountain Monsters, there's several of those eyewitnesses that requested to go by a different name on air. They didn't want their real name out there. So there's a little behind the scenes for you. As most of our eyewitnesses, their names, there was only a handful that I can think of off the top of my head that their name was their actual name.
Yeah, I believe it. So back to you, Buck. I got one question for you, man. Tell us about a hunt that you're particularly proud of. What surprised you? What would you do differently now?
So, I know we talked earlier about the grass man, but that is one that I did dedicate a lot of time to. And what a lot of people didn't realize is I was working a full-time job and also hunting these cryptids while filming. I was doing all of this, so the amount of running I did was unreal. But the Ohio grass man, it was one that I went after that was very kind of out the gate was kind of special to me. Not only is it close to home, it wasn't not my first encounter, but whenever I was a kid, not that close to home, but I don't know. It just for some reason it just kind of sat special for me, and it's one that I feel. So I am a competitive person by nature. I was a football player. I was a wrestler. I was a baseball player. I'm a competitive person by nature. I don't like to lose, and I generally fight back until I win. With the Ohio Grassman, I feel like I lost. I feel like I lost with that creature, and I'm not done fighting him. I'm definitely ready to go back after him, but that specific creature is very special to me. And with Trapper on that hunt, that was very special. Trapper, it was special to him, so it kind of makes it more special to me. So that's one that I feel like I got beat, and ready to I'm ready to vindicate my loss, if that makes sense.
It absolutely.
And you destroyed Uncle Leroy's party van. So
yeah, Bill can't let that go. He talks about it all the time.
He still talks about it. I think that's his vendetta that he holds. It's not so much what the grass man did to you.
Yeah.
It's he destroyed Uncle Leroy's party van. So he's ready to go.
But I'll tell you my proudest hunt ever, and it has nothing to do with cryptids. But it has to do with my grandpa, who's no longer with us. He died he was about 90 years old, a little over 90, but we was turkey hunting, and I'll never forget. I heard him out the ridge from me, and I heard a bird gobble out close to him, and he was almost 90 years old, and I thought, I'm going to go out there and see if I can give my grandpa a hand. And I hurried up, and I got out there, and I asked him, I said, "Did you hear that bird gobble?" He said, "No." I said, "Well, you had one gobble pretty close to you." He said, "Well, I didn't hear it." So I cut on a box call I'm pretty good turkey caller, actually. And that bird, I mean, he just hammered right over the bank. And I told him, I said, "Dad, you go right down there, sit up against that tree. I'm going to step back, and I'm going to call, and that bird will be right in your lap." I said, "He's coming." And I no more and turned, and he got out of sight, and I turned around and went and I sat down, and I reached to grab my call, and boom, the gun goes off. But I took off and I run. And turkey, I mean, you shoot them, they go to a flop, and they're liable to get away. I took off running, and I see my grandpa sitting on the ground, not against the tree, just sitting on the ground, and I see that bird flopping. So I run right past him, and I jump on that bird, and I grab it by the head, and I wring its neck, and I went up there, and I said, "You got him?" I said, "You got him." And of course, we called him Dad. I said, "You got him, Dad." And he said that gun knocked me on my butt. I said, "What?" He's using a single barrel 10 gauge.
Oh my gosh.
I killed my first turkey with that gun, but he's used single barrel 10 gauge, and he had just slipped down that point, and that bird was coming in, and it come running up the hill, so he threw the gun up and he busted it and knocked him right on his rear end.
Wow.
I said, "Well, you got your bird." He said, "Well, it got my shoulder." I said, "Are you ready to switch to a different gun?" He said, "I think I like this one just fine, son." I said, "All right, Pam." That's one of my favorite ones.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
My favorite, we all have our grandpa stories. Mine had nothing to do with hunting. My grandfather was a mechanic, but my grandma ran that house for what I thought was a long time. And we lived right downtown in Cynthiana, and right next, half a block from our house was a Family Dollar store. And I'd gotten in trouble. My grandma was so mad at me. So of course I went out. Papa was working on cars. So I went out with him, and he's like, "I need a soda. Let's go over here to the Dollar Tree." So we go over to the Family Dollar, and he gets a soda, and there's this big, and you guys will probably remember these big plastic F-14 Tomcats that I just wanted and wanted. You could put G.I. Joes in it and everything. And my grandma absolutely forbade it to come in the house. But my papa said, "Yeah, I'll get that for you." So he got that for me. And I come back and I run through the house. I'm flying this thing. And my grandma sees it. And she comes to the front door and she starts. You could see fire in her eyes, and he just looks at her and he just sticks his hands up and he says, "Not one word." And it was like the life just drained out of her. She turned around, she walked back in. She didn't even look at me the rest of the day, but I got my damn jet. And I'll never forget that.
Hey, I'll tell you. Okay,
Just be done.
It was a different time.
I'll tell you my grandpa's story, which is one of my favorites ever. So we were riding. We'd went out to town for some reason. The family was gathered at my aunt's house. We were coming back, and it was country area. So we pulled over, and there was these turnips laying by this big old garden out there. And we pulled over on the side of the road, and he said, "Listen." He said, "You watch that house." He said, "I'm going to get out and get these turnips," because he said, "This old man ain't going to do nothing but let them lay out here and ride anyway." And so I was sitting there watching the house, and he loaded up the turnips, and we drove off. And it wasn't till a few years later, when we got back to the house, I told the story, but it wasn't a few years later. I was like, "My grandpa stole those turnips, and he was using me as a lookout." And that's still one of my favorite stories, because he said that old man has kicked them turnips. He's gonna let them sit out here and rot. They've been laying there all day. He said, "I'm gonna pull up here and get them." He said, "Just watch the house and holler if you see anybody coming out." So I was like, "Well, that's wonderful." But you think about stuff like that, but it's you're like, my grandpa stole those turnips, and I was an accessory.
He was getting you used to the breaking the law young.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Wonderful. So, Jeff, let me ask you, when you've recorded for the night, you're done, is there a particular chain of custody on all your footage, or how do you get it back?
Yeah, so
that would be my biggest thing.
usually. Oh yeah, so I guard that stuff with my life. So usually what happens is I'll have a hotel somewhere close, and as soon as I get back to the room, a lot of they'll unwind, go to bed, but I'm up, so I've got to dump that footage onto a hard drive to make sure it's safe. I got to look at things, make sure it all is, everything's good with it. But I will not let footage set on a memory card overnight. As soon as I get back to that room, I'm in there putting it where it needs to go, because I want to make sure that it's good. Because being in the conditions that we're in, especially when it was summer, it was so hot, and I wanted to make sure that everything was good. And because you got to think, we're 2 hours away, 6 hours away from where we need to be, and then So you got one shot to get what you need to get. You can't, and if that footage is not there, you're lost. So
Dude,
it's important that I do that. I make sure that I take care of the equipment just top notch, because it is so important to us, because we can't just stink a drone into a pond, like the Discovery Channel can. If we lose something like that, we're like, oh, we got to spend money on another one. So it's something that's that is my big thing. Is as soon as I get back to the room, I take all the cameras in the room with me like they're little babies, and I make sure that they're taken care of and that they're safe. We don't leave anything in vehicles, because somebody sees the case, they say, oh, I'm going to steal this. So I mean, I protect everything with my life.
Cameras into bed.
What?
Yeah,
I could almost sleep with that case.
Camera
Yeah, I could almost sleep with the case. That's how big it is.
That's crazy. So, but what is the sketchiest moment you've had in the hills? How did you? I'm sure you've had a bunch.
Man, honestly, there's been a lot of moments that in the moment you don't realize like how sketchy it really was. And we've had several actually. Jeff was with me not too long ago. Whenever we was sitting there, we was having a camera issue. We was sitting there fighting a camera, and I hear a bear come up on us, growling and cracking its teeth, and I just jumped up immediately and hollered great big at it, and it took off over the hill. But I mean, that's not uncommon. You know what I mean? That's normal stuff. I mean, and it was 40 yards away. I mean, I've later I end up seeing a picture of that bear, and it's about a 400-pound black bear. So it would do some damage. But I will tell you this: it would have to make 2 or 3 meals out of me, because I will give it everything I got, and I am not a little feller. But
yeah, it's the crazy thing. The crazy thing about it was, the landowner that we were on had game cameras everywhere, and that's one of the reasons why we were there, is because he had got some footage on the game camera.
Yep.
And it's crazy because he showed Buck after the fact, and he's like, hey, you was talking about y'all might have heard a bear. Well, here it is going into the woods right before you all get there to go in and hunt.
Yep.
And so you see the bear go right into the woods, and so it's 100% in there with us, and that's what we heard. And I was sitting there trying to mess with the camera, because I think I was trying to put it on. That's when you were getting ready to, I think, stealth film. So I was trying to put it on there where you could have it yourself.
Yep.
And it's crazy when you get out there, because here's what a lot of people don't realize. I don't have an audio tech. I don't have a camera tech. It's all, if something goes wrong, I have to fix it. If I'm not hearing somebody's audio, I've got to go figure out what it is. So, it's a lot of times the surroundings is not even in my mind. It's just making sure technically what's going on.
So as far as like one of the sketchiest moments, and of course we've had a lot of different sketchy moments over the years, but there's one in particular, and I'm talking about with cryptid creatures, with the natural habitat, with everything. We've had a lot of sketchy moments. But I'll tell you one in particular that really threw me is when we very first started Mountain Monsters. We was on the side. It was basically like a cliff, and the camera guy. These are Hollywood folk. They don't do the woods. You know what I mean? Like that. We went through a lot of cameramen, but this guy, like, he had a lot of heart. I'll give him that. He took one wrong step. And I reached down and I grabbed him. I've always been a strong man, but I was a lot younger back then. And I just grabbed him. I didn't think that. I just grabbed him, and I had no clue. He was dangling over about a 50-foot cliff, and I grabbed him with one arm and slung him back up there with me. I said, "Dude, you got to watch your step." And then I just took my flashlight and looked over where he was standing and looked down. And I was like, "Oh, dude, hey, you about died." It's like, you just about ate it, man.
So here's the funny part to that. Like, I've heard them tell these stories a bunch. So what would happen was that the production company would get these guys, and they're just Hollywood camera people, or they're Hollywood sound people. So they've never really been in the mountains or anywhere. And so they've had guys just set their camera down while they were filming. It was like, I'm done. I'm going to go on out of here, because you got to think, all these guys are union guys. So they don't have to do anything. They have to work a certain amount of days. They're all unionized. And where Buck and them may be out there for 16 hours, well, these guys can't work that long. You know, they're all on union time. So they're all union workers from Hollywood. So, you know, they've had sound guys before. It's literally just laid their sound equipment down. It's like, it's not what I signed up for. I'm out of here.
3 off the top of my head when things were getting sketchy. 3 different audio guys off the top of my mind I can think of. Things got sketchy. They set their bag down and said, the audio's on, I'm out, and left. Done.
What happens when, I guess there's still audio, it's just you don't have somebody who's there to troubleshoot if something goes wrong?
Well, a lot of times there's no troubleshooting. Like, it's all rough. Like, at that point, like, and we tried to keep things as small as possible when we was in the woods with Mountain Monsters. But at that point, like, it was one of the cameramen had to strap that sound gear on, or Colt had to strap it on, and carry that camera gear around. And that camera gear, that audio gear, and that audio gear, like, I picked it up a couple times. Like, it's heavy. Yeah. Like, it's legit. Like, you're talking about, 50 to 80 pounds hanging off.
That's one thing that people don't realize. Even our cameras, we pretty much use the same camera that they use filming the show. For the most part, it's almost identical. Yep. But a lot of people don't understand, when you put the IR lights on that, when you have a natural light on that, when you have microphones, all that camera weighs about 20 pounds. So, I mean, you're sitting there carrying that around the woods for hours on end. I mean, it starts to get very heavy.
Yeah.
So, speaking of the audio and all that, Jeff, let me ask you a question. How do you, and as the producer of the show, this kind of falls to you. How do you separate, like, wind and wildlife noises from, hey, something is here, we need to stay on audio? How do you make?
Well, the best part about it is and I'll tell you this, the guys are so, like, on, as far as, like, they are so, like, tuned in to the wildlife. So, and I think that just comes from all those years being out there doing those investigations. But it's like, I can hear everything. But a lot of times I'm run to all of their mics so I can hear them talking or whatever. So it's not a situation where I can hear the wildlife. I mostly just hear what they're saying and back and forth to make sure I got clear audio. Buck and those guys, what usually happens is they'll hear very well everything around us. And they're like, did you hear that? Wait just a second. Like, there was an incident when we were out there filming that last time where Buck did a wood knock, and then there was a wood knock over the hill. So, I mean, he was like, hey, wait a minute. Did you hear that? Yeah. So a lot of times I don't pick that stuff up until I start editing. And then when I edit, I can hear everything. So, I mean, it's a situation where a lot of times when I'm out there in the field, I'm just hearing their voices and making sure we got clear audio. And then when I start to edit everything, I can hear everything.
So,
and that's another thing people ask. They're like, let me make this statement, because this is a question people ask. People are like, well, why didn't you tell them about what you saw on the screen, on your video screen? Well, first off, we're in infrared, okay? We're in IR, so there's no natural light. It's all pitch black dark. So the little screen that I'm looking at is maybe 3 or 4 inches, maybe 5. And what I'm looking at is to make sure that the shot's framed properly, that I got them in frame, and I'm not looking at the background. Now, when I dump it in the computer, I can see everything. But in that instance, my eyes, for one, are adjusted to this little bit of LED screen, so I can't see everything. So I can't just say, oh, look, I think I seen eyes behind you. No, you don't see that until later.
Right. That makes sense. And for anybody who's never done anything with audio or sound or video, that is something that they don't understand.
Yep.
Even like if you iPhones have become very good to take videos and stuff, and you see them more and more on like where they're filming ghost houses and stuff. But that's crazy.
Yeah.
But hey, Buck, if someone has a legit lead for you, what's the cleanest way they can send it without wasting your time? Just, hey, we have this. We'd like you to take a look. Obviously you're busy. You're working 2 jobs. It sounds like.
So,
What's the best
well,
way they can send you a lead?
the biggest issue I've had, like personally, is people who end up with my personal information abuse it, and then uh, people that have had my personal information that you think you can trust, you can't trust, and they abuse it and share it with people. But as of right now, the best way to get a hold of us, as far as or me, um, specifically, is either my Facebook page, I have a fan Facebook page, or I've got a TikTok that I check very regularly. You can message me on there. But as far as leads and stuff like that go, we have our the Sons of Appalachia page on Facebook. You can direct message in there, and Jeff and Lee and they have access to that, and they ship that stuff straight to me. So that's another good option. When it comes to the Sons of Appalachia, we're a team, and we all work together. And I'm not talking about just me and Huck and Bill. I'm talking about me, Huck, Bill, Jeff, Jennifer, and Lee. We're a team. We're a family, and we take care of each other. So whenever they get something, a lot of times they'll send it to me, and I check it out. So, or again, you can shoot me. I'm not great about being on my Facebook, but I am on there sometimes. And then my TikTok, I've been on quite regularly here recently because I'm trying to grow my account on it.
So
Yeah, so like if somebody has a lead or something like that, they can go to the SOA team.com or the SO or I think it's SOA team business at Gmail is our email, but through our Facebook, the Real Sons of Appalachia, the SOAteam.com, it all has the links and stuff. And what we'll do is there's nothing that we don't get that we don't run past everybody. If we get an email or something like that, then we'll say, hey, the next time we get together, we'll bring it up and say, hey, is this something, that we're interested in, or is it something we need to push off for a little bit? And, because like Buck said, I don't have everybody with us tonight, but, Lee and Jennifer Kirkland have been my partners forever. We're all one big family. So, although it may be me that you see on the woods or Lee that you see on camera sometimes, Jennifer's there usually making sure either she's holding the camera or she's making sure I don't fall over a hill, and it's vice versa. So, we all do it together. And I don't think people realize what a small team we have. And I think that we do it and we have it small like we have it because we want it to be very intimate, because it's almost like a sixth sense. We kind of know what each other is feeling or what we're looking for.
That's perfect. So, Buck, on episode 5 of Sons of Appalachia, before you went into the red shed, you made a pretty powerful statement about God, and I, for one, just want to let you know that I appreciate that when people of godly, when people aren't afraid to speak the truth, people listen. So thank you for what you said.
I really appreciate you saying that. And whenever we talked earlier, I told you that I'm still getting used to the things that we're allowed to do on YouTube. That's something I was never allowed to do previously with a network. You couldn't talk. I could have never said that. It would have all been edited out because I tried. And every time it got cut out, and Jeff knows that's important to me, and he does our editing, and I was very thankful for that opportunity. Even when we do a food review.
Well, I'll tell you something that's funny. On that situation that you're talking about, Buck asked me. He was like, "Hey, can I say this? Can I make sure to say this. I was like, you say whatever you want. I was like, we'll put it on there. I mean, this ain't Hollywood no more. We can make it. And I think that lets people, I know people thought they knew them before. People thought that they knew how they were and their different things. But in this circumstance, you actually get to see the person. You know what I'm saying? So you get to see a little more of them as people. And when Buck asked me that question, I was like, absolutely. I mean, that's, we'll put that in there because I think that's important. I think that is as you got to see them as who they are. You don't want them to play somebody that they're not. You want them to be the person. And I think that's what a lot of these shows and stuff on TV, even, some of these ghost shows and things, is they're so pulled away from who they actually are, is you don't really get to see who the people are. And that's one thing that we will never get away from. I mean, we want you all to understand that, they're people and their beliefs are just as important to them as anything else. And we've had a ton of comments that have appreciated exactly what you said.
And I appreciate you bringing that up. I really do. Something. You go ahead. You go ahead, Steve.
Well, I was just going to say that is something that we don't shy away from on this podcast, and because it's something that all three of us believe. Unfortunately, Jerry's not here; he's got some personal issues tonight. But and I feel like if I lose a listener because of my beliefs, then that listener wasn't mine to begin with.
I'm okay with it. I would rather.
Yeah,
I'll tell you something. I was. People don't know. Like people question why I, quote unquote, becoming the team leader or whatever. I never considered myself the team leader at all. Trapper was always our team leader, but a lot of people don't realize I was a supervisor in a correctional setting for several years. I was actually I was the chief of security for several years. I was very high up in supervision. I had a man come to me one time and he wanted to pray for an inmate, and I told him. He said, "Am I going to get in trouble for that?" I said, "Not by me." He said, "But I don't." He said, "But I know what policy says." I said, "I'd rather be right by God and wrong by man." So, be right by God. You know what I mean? I'll tell you, just like
Absolutely.
it's something I'm very thankful for. Is this something that's very, very that me and Jeff was both very passionate about when we discussed it, and then it was something that I found that all of us on our team are very passionate about is breast cancer awareness. This is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we got the opportunity because we're free to do what we wish now to film a video trying to bring awareness to breast cancer, and now we're trying to raise money for breast cancer awareness. You know what I mean? Like these are things that you get to see the real us and who we really are, not opposed to Hollywood cutting things out and showing you just straight entertainment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And and another thing on that same line is I'll tell you one of the reasons that really I think that I feel a little better about doing this with these guys than just picking up a camera and going and doing a ghost show. You know what I'm saying? And it's because a lot of the events that we do, I'm sitting right beside them, doing whatever, taking the money, taking pictures, whatever the case is. But you hear so many people come through that line that if it wasn't for that show, that they would be in a whole different place right now. Whether it's mental health issues, whether it's, they were going through a rough time, and that show was an outlet for them. So when that show went away, that outlet wasn't there no more. So we try to promote mental health as well, because we've had a lot of fans come to us and say, thank you for bringing this back. Or they'll comment on our post and say, I was having a rough week, your all show made me laugh, or whatever the case is. I don't get that with other people that we work with. I don't hear that all the time. But with these guys, it's almost like that they are such an outlet for people that this show has a little more meaning personally to me than just being a YouTube channel. And if I can bring happiness, or if we can bring happiness just by doing this channel, or keeping somebody from thinking about doing something to themselves, or whatever the case may be, that's important to us. Is some of that. I mean, there's been many times that military people have come up to us and they've said, if it wouldn't have been for your show, I wouldn't have survived being in Afghanistan or Iraq or whatever the case was, because it was an outlet for them. So I mean, that you don't know how good that makes you feel when you hear that, and you feel that you've helped somebody just by having a creative outlet for them.
Yeah, well, that's impressive, guys.
Right, I want to say one more thing, just and what you were talking about with just the amount of success that you guys have had. This just reminded me of this Bible verse, Luke 12:48, which is, to whom much has been given, much will be required. And from the one to whom much has been entrusted, even much more will be demanded. And like with you having this platform of, 90,000 subscribers, you've had Mountain Monsters, you've, you're getting 250,000 views on almost every episode. Yeah. I think that God has blessed you.
Absolutely.
You almost have an obligation to preach to these, to speak the truth to these people.
Well, listen, my granny was a pastor. My dad was and still is a pastor, and my brother Mark, who was my hero growing up, is a pastor. And I sat and I talked with my brother and my dad not too awful long ago when we was talking about this channel, and Dad made it very clear. He said, son, you have an opportunity to get the word out to a lot more people than me or your brother has ever had. He said, so don't you turn that opportunity down. I said, Dad, it's going to keep growing. I said, and the more it grows, I said, the more people's going to know. And I won't be bashful about proclaiming the name of Jesus Christ. I can assure you that.
Perfect. So tell the audience where we can expect to hear from you guys next. I know you got a new thing coming up. We'd love to have you back whenever that pops, and we'd be able to talk about it and help you promote it. And tell everybody what you're doing, what's going on the next little bit for you.
All right. So over the next couple months, we have 2 meet and greets where you'll get the opportunity, like if people want to come and see us and hang out with us. We'll be in Crossville, Tennessee, I believe next weekend. We'll be down there. Love that place. It's the I think is it Jeff? Is the Upper Cumberland Bigfoot Festival? Is that what it's called?
Yeah. Steve and them will be there too.
Oh, awesome! Awesome! I look forward to that.
Face to face, Buck.
I look forward to that. Maybe we can even do something while we're down there with you.
Sounds perfect.
We'll be there, and then our big event in November, Crypticon. Great event, love it. It will be there. I'm not going to give away too much on. We do have something, a new project that's going to be coming up. Hopefully, we're looking at November or December. We was going to try to pull this off next month, but it's just the cards aren't falling right. We're looking at possibly December. Without giving too much away, I will say that I think this is something that not only are the fans going to love, but it's something they'll be able to engage with us. Next year,
we're trying. We've got a couple of different things, and this will all be on our YouTube channel, so it's not going to be anywhere outside of that. But we're trying to get more interactive with the people. That way, for years they've been able to just watch, and we want them to actually be a part of some of this stuff. So, of course, the episodes are going to be the episodes. Some of the content's going to be some of the content, but we want to also bring in a very interactive aspect to it. And we've started to actually, we've got all of the equipment to do what we need to do. It's just, we got to make sure that it functions. And then when it functions, we'll roll it out. And the reason we can't do it in November is we've got another event going on, so I'm actually having to carry the entire production load myself when we go out on this November hunt. So there's no way I would be able to do everything we wanted to do, so we had to push it till December. So there's a lot of cool stuff coming, and we want to keep the fans entertained and involved, and we listen a lot of times to a lot of things that people want. And you can find anything. If you have trouble finding us on YouTube, just go to the SOAteam.com. All of the links are there. And if you want to support the breast cancer stuff, it's on our shop page, which is also on the SOAteam.com. Click merchandise. Any pink shirt that's bought there that we just recently posted, all of those 100% goes to breast cancer research. And we're not going for like a major, huge international breast cancer. We want to give the little guys some money. That's
local.
some of these smaller charities that have a hard time.
So Jeff, you got a couple of cool things going on your own there. Jeff, for those that don't know, is also an author and has released a book called The Haunting of a Bourbon Town. And you can find that pretty much anywhere now, right, Jeff?
It's Amazon for sure has it. That's where I would go to find it. And, I have really pulled back everything that I usually have going on because I'm focusing a lot of my efforts and a lot of my resources just on this channel and our project we got going here. And, I figured this year it would be best just to kind of back off and push hard on getting the channel going and rocking with it. So that's kind of what I'm shooting for. And then we'll see how it rolls after that.
One thing that we're also looking to is and this was part of from what we discussed from before we started this channel, is we want to get our YouTube rolling. We've started TikTok. We have the Sons of Appalachia TikTok. I've got my own personal TikTok. That's something that as our YouTube page grows, that we will be able to spend a little more time to and post TikTok videos, and because that's where ultimately I want to see some I'm hoping in the future to create some behind the scenes stuff for TikTok that's entertaining, fun. You may get to see me throw a loaded mousetrap at Huckleberry. That's just fun stuff we do going down the roads. We have a good time, and a lot of the times when these shows drop, it's hard to keep people engaged if you're trying to jump their emotions from funny to happy to sad, you know what I mean. So
Right.
I'm hoping. So make sure that check out our TikTok too, because as our YouTube grows, our TikTok is going to start growing as well.
Man, that's awesome.
And I'll tell you something else, Steve. All of these events that we do, we're filming every one of them. So it'll be like a road trip. So we're filming it all, going to, during. We've got some special stuff lined up, at different things. So that's one thing that the fans will get to see that they didn't get to see before, is they'll get to see all of this. So that it's just not, oh, well, we got to, do this or do that. No, you get to see, we're going to show you everything now.
Yeah. I'm going to be filming
That'll
us
be
going.
posted on your YouTube channel.
What's that?
That's fantastic.
Yep, everything's YouTube. And here's one thing that's important to us is we will never put ourselves behind a paywall. And we want everything to be free for our fans, because eventually we may look at putting some stuff on Amazon and things like that where people can actually rent it and watch it if they don't have access to YouTube. But about everybody can watch YouTube. And that was one thing from the beginning we wanted it to be free for the fans, and then that way they could watch it, because you wouldn't believe the amount of fans we have that are younger that watch us on a tablet or whatever the case are. So we got to remember, who's watching the show. So
Yep.
Right. Well, that's fantastic. Guys, I appreciate and thank you guys so much for your time tonight and coming on the show. Again, when you get ready to launch, or when you have launched your new project that's under wraps right now, we would love to have you guys back
100%.
and talk
Absolutely.
to you about it and do all the things. Also, don't forget to not run away just immediately, because we got to cover some other stuff. But
Absolutely.
thank you, guys, and I appreciate you. And Brett?
Yeah, no, thanks for coming on our show. This is one of my favorite interviews that we've ever done. So
That's saying
Well,
something. We've
listen,
done a bunch of interviews.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you guys having us, and honestly, I look forward to doing this again. I really do.
Awesome.
You guys are some great people, and I can't wait to do it.